The American families back here at home with so many questions. What a team of explorers just found.
I couldn't believe it when I first heard about this discovery. It's the kind of thing you'd expect in a movie, not real life.
Missing on a top-secret World War II mission, the submarine.
Scientists have uncovered a World War II submarine trapped in Arctic ice, and what they found inside defies all expectations. A vessel lost for decades, perfectly preserved by the cold, holding secrets that rewrite what we thought we knew about the war. So, let's dive right in. In June 2019, a twist in the tale of the USS Greyback, a US Navy submarine missing since the thick of World War II, had everyone leaning a bit closer to their screens. Discovered off the coast of Okinawa, Japan, this wasn't just a find, it was a revelation, courtesy of undersea explorer Tim Taylor and his savvy team from the Lost 52 project. This group has one hefty goal: to track down the 52 US submarines that vanished during the war. Launched into service on June 30th, 1941, the USS Greyback SS-208, a Tambor-class submarine, was no stranger to peril. It dove into its final mission from Pearl Harbor on January 28, 1944, setting a course for the East China Sea. Fast forward a few weeks, and on February 19th, it sent a report claiming the sinking of 2 Japanese cargo ships, with a note that it was down to its last 2 torpedoes. Orders were clear: head back home. But after that, it was as if the sea swallowed it whole. Silence. Decades passed, and the Greyback's resting place remained a mystery, tucked away under layers of ocean and wartime fog. The twist, a clerical blip in the translation of Japanese war records, had everyone looking in the wrong spot. The longitude was off by a single digit, a minor error with major consequences. This discrepancy came to light thanks to researcher Yutaka Iwasaki's eagle eyes, setting the stage for what was to come. With the correct coordinates in hand, Taylor's team, armed with the latest in autonomous underwater vehicles and remotely operated vehicles, plunged into the depths southwest of Okinawa. On June 5, 2019, at a depth of 1,427 feet, about 100 miles off the initial guess, they struck historical gold. The Greyback was there, silent and solemn, a ghostly testament to its final moments. The US Navy gave the official nod, confirming the find and, in a way, allowing the souls of the 80 sailors aboard to finally head home. Rear Admiral Blake Converse, commander of the US Pacific Fleet's submarine force, summed it up best. The discovery of the USS Greyback provides us another precious opportunity to honor the brave sailors who sacrificed so much in combat to preserve our freedom. Closure, at last, for families gripping onto the hope of answers, proving once again that history, no matter how deep it's buried, has a way of resurfacing. While the waters of the Pacific revealed long-held secrets, the chilly depths of the North Atlantic were busy telling tales of their own. Over in the spring of 2023, a team from Norway's Institute of Marine Research set sail under the Mariano program, aiming to chart the unknowns of seabed biology and geology. And wouldn't you know it, their maps started showing some odd blips near the bottom. Naturally, curiosity wasn't just going to sit this one out. So, down went the underwater camera, plunging into the depths like a scene from a deep-sea thriller, revealing not treasure, but something just as captivating: a submarine wreck lying quietly at 160 meters, about 525 feet below the surface. Chell, usually not one for the video room, couldn't resist this time. It is not very often that I am in the video room when new locations are being investigated, but on this particular occasion, my curiosity was piqued well before the video rig was submerged in the water, he remarked. The first guess, it could be one of 2 British submarines lost during the turmoil of World War II in that area, HMS Oxley or HMS Thistle. The plot thickens, right? To get to the bottom of this underwater mystery, the team scheduled a follow-up expedition for October 2023. cruising back to the site in the Skagerrak Strait with a checklist of submarine features to confirm their hunch. Expedition leader Kira Heldal-Cartwright was like a detective closing in on the case. In advance, we knew what characteristics we should look for. Thus, we were able to identify the wreck as Thistle, but with a small caveat that it is the Royal Navy who is responsible for the final identification. Talk about a cliffhanger. Here's a bit of backstory for you. HMS Thistle, a T-class submarine, was a real player back in the day. Launched in October 1938 under the command of Lieutenant Wilfred Frederick Hasselfoot. Its mission, patrolling off Stavanger, Norway. Fast forward to April 1940, when HMS Thistle exchanged blows with the German submarine U-4. The Brits fired 6 torpedoes, all missed, and the Germans came back at them with 2 torpedoes in the early hours of April 10th, while the Thistle surfaced and recharged. The second torpedo was a hit, sending the submarine and all 53 crew members to their watery graves.
To see the detail, it looks as if this is a true war grave.
Now, while the Thistle's story ends there, let's not forget about the other stalwarts of the deep blue. Take, for instance, HMS Triumph. Back in 1938, the British Royal Navy was making waves with the launch of HMS Triumph N-18, a sleek T-class submarine primed for underwater skirmishes. World War II was the stage, and Triumph had a starring role. It undertook more than 20 daring missions across the Mediterranean Sea, from torpedoing enemy ships to deploying covert agents onto foreign shores. This submarine was a real-deal secret agent of the sea. One of her notable escapades took her to Antiparos, Greece, in December 1941, where she successfully dropped off British intelligence officers. But here's the rub. When it came time to pick them up on January 9th, 1942, Triumph was a no-show. Fast forward to January 23rd, and she was officially MIA, taking the secrets of her 64-member crew to an unknown grave beneath the waves. For years, the mystery of the Triumph was like a puzzle, missing its last piece, frustrating and unresolved. Enter Kostas Thoktorides, a Greek diver with a flair for underwater detective work. Kostas had been on this underwater whodunit for over 20 years, proving that determination does sometimes pay off. In June 2023, he and his team hit the jackpot, finding Triumph's final parking spot in the Aegean Sea, a chilly 666 feet deep near Cape Sunion. The scene at the seafloor was quite the spectacle. The sub was found tucked away, with her hatches sealed shut and periscope down, suggesting she was submerged when things went sideways. The front end of the submarine told a grim tale with signs of a major explosion. What caused this blast? Was it a sneaky naval mine, or was something wrong with the sub? The jury's still out, as experts in submarines and torpedoes are piecing together the clues. Transitioning from the depths of the Aegean to the Atlantic, where another colossal chapter of maritime history lies. In the late 1980s, Dr. Robert D. Ballard, who had already won fame by discovering the Titanic, took on the challenge of locating another legendary wreck, the German battleship Bismarck. During World War II, the Bismarck had been a beast on the seas, managing to sink the British battlecruiser HMS Hood before it met its own watery end in May 1941. The exact location of the Bismarck had eluded historians and explorers for decades, hiding somewhere in the Atlantic's abyss. Ballard's first voyage in July 1988 to uncover this maritime mystery came up empty. Not one to give up, he hit the high seas again in late May 1989. After scanning about 200 square miles of the ocean floor, success finally surfaced on June 8, 1989. The Bismarck was found upright, half buried in mud, at a bone-crushing depth of about 4,790 meters, 15,700 feet, some 470 miles west of Brest, France. Despite the severe damage from its last battle, the Bismarck's hull was surprisingly whole. A curious sight indeed were the main battery turrets, which had detached during the descent and now lay upside down near the wreck. Meanwhile, the secondary battery turrets and most of the anti-aircraft firearms were still at their posts. Though battered, the forward and aft conning towers and the bridge were still hanging on to the hull. Even the propellers were clearly visible, silently telling the story of their last stand. And surrounding it all, a debris field scattered with remains like the foremast, mainmast, and funnel. Respecting this site as a war grave, the German government was quick to state their claim, declaring the Bismarck under the ownership of the Federal Republic of Germany and stressing that any dives or recovery efforts inside the wreck would need their green light. This stance is a poignant reminder of the site's solemnity and the resting place of the lost sailors. Fast forward to June 2001, and the wreck sees visitors again. This time, deep ocean expeditions, led by the adventurous Australian Michael McDowell, took the plunge. Aboard the Russian research vessel Academic Keldysh, equipped with MIR submersibles capable of diving 6,000 meters deep, the team got a closer look at the Bismarck. They even placed a memorial plaque to honor the memories of the crew who went down with their ship. While these deep-sea detectives were uncovering history, the British Royal Navy was writing its own chapter during the war with the introduction of the HMS Urge. Back in 1940, at the height of World War II, the British Royal Navy was not messing around when they introduced the HMS Urge, a slick U-class submarine ready for some serious action. Under the keen command of Lieutenant Commander Edward Philip Tompkinson, this submarine wasn't just floating around, it was deeply involved in the Mediterranean theater, buzzing with missions that targeted enemy ships and supported covert ops. Fast forward to April 27, 1942, HMS Urge left Malta with a course set for Alexandria, Egypt, packed with 32 crew members, 11 naval passengers, and even a war correspondent. This submarine was on a critical journey. But here's where things took a turn into the unknown. The HMS Urge never made it to its destination and simply vanished without a trace. Talk about a ghost ship scenario. Decades rolled by, and the mystery of HMS Urge became a maritime legend until 2017, when Francis Dickinson, the determined grandson of Lieutenant Commander Tompkinson, decided it was time to solve this family mystery. Teaming up with the University of Malta, where maritime archaeologist Professor Timmy Gambon was all game to dive into this historical puzzle, they started connecting the dots. Their detective work in 2019 led them to a spot not too far off the Maltese coast, where things started to get interesting. Using some high-tech gear, like an autonomous underwater vehicle, the team got busy scanning the deep-sea floor. And wouldn't you know, they found something that looked suspiciously submarine-like. To get a better look, they sent down a remotely operated vehicle, which sent back images of a submarine sitting eerily upright on the seabed, with its bow shattered, evidence that it had met a rather swift and explosive end, likely from a mine. By 2021, the mystery finally unfolded as divers from the University of Malta and Heritage Malta got their hands on the ultimate piece of evidence, the name Urge, etched right on the conning tower. Finally, closure for the families and a fitting tribute to the brave souls who met their fate aboard HMS Urge. Now, not to be outdone, the US Navy was making some waves of its own during World War II with the USS Wahoo SS 238. In the thick of World War II, in 1942, the US Navy was betting big on a piece of iron called the USS Wahoo SS 238, a Gato-class submarine that wasn't just any chunk of metal floating in the Pacific. Under the daring command of Lieutenant Commander Dudley W. Mush Morton, this submarine quickly became a legend for its bold missions. But not every story has a fairy tale ending. On October 11th, 1943, Wahoo was trying to sneak its way out of the Sea of Japan through the La Perouse Strait when it vanished. Poof! Just like that, all 80 crew members on board were gone, swallowed by the sea without a trace. For over 60 years, the Wahoo was like a ghost story. There, but not quite. Then, in 1995, a team with a mix of hope, tech, and a splash of obsession formed the Wahoo Project Group. This wasn't just a handful of hobbyists. It was an international squad, including folks from Japan and Russia, and even led by Morton's own grandnephew, Brian McKinnon. Talk about keeping it in the family. Japanese records cracked the case wide open. In 2000, they uncovered detailed accounts of a 7-hour onslaught against a submarine in the very strait where Wahoo disappeared. The reports told of a surfaced sub that dived under heavy artillery fire, followed by a barrage of bombs and depth charges. The aftermath, oil slicks, and floating debris, classic signs of a submarine meet catastrophe scenario. By 2004, the plot thickened when the Sakhalin Energy Investment Corporation spotted some unusual shapes on the seabed during an underwater survey. Fast forward to July 2006, and a Russian dive team named Iskra, steered by Vladimir Kartashev, decided it was time to take a closer look. Diving down to about 213 feet, 65 meters, they found a submarine resting upright on the ocean floor, looking pretty worse for wear near its conning tower, which bore the scars of bomb impacts. The shape and design screamed Gato class, and guess what? Wahoo was the only sub of its kind reported missing in that neck of the woods. By October 31st, 2006, it was official. The U.S. Navy confirmed the wreck as the USS Wahoo. Admiral Gary Ruhead of the U.S. Pacific Fleet delivered the news, offering a touch of solace to the families of those 80 souls, hoping this discovery could help them find some closure. Not too far from these naval exploits, but on a very different kind of mission, was the HMS Narwhal of the British Royal Navy. Launched in 1935, this Grampus-class submarine of the British Royal Navy was no stranger to danger, tasked primarily with mine-laying operations. Fast forward to July 22, 1940, Lieutenant Commander Ronald James Birch steered Narwhal from Blyth, England, with a mission to scatter mines along the coast of German-occupied Norway. However, fate had other plans as the vessel, along with its 59 brave souls, vanished after their last transmission on July 23, 1940. For over 77 years, the whereabouts of Narwhal puzzled historians and left families waiting for closure. Then, in a twist fit for a maritime mystery novel, 2017 brought hope when a Polish expedition set out to uncover another lost submarine, the ORP Orze. Led by the intrepid Tomasz Stachura, the team's sonar scans of the North Sea's floor unearthed a wreck not far from Edinburgh, Scotland. Lo and behold, the dimensions were a near-perfect match for the Narwhal. Historical detective work and location clues pieced together the puzzle, suggesting this was indeed the resting place of the lost submarine. Further clenching the identification, records from a German aircraft piloted by Lieutenant Bernhard Müller detailed an attack on a surface sub that day in 1940. The attack, which resulted in a submarine meeting a watery grave stern first, aligned eerily with the wreck's location. This evidence was like finding the last piece of a heart-wrenching jigsaw puzzle. The closure came not just in records and relics, but also in human connections. In January 2018, some of the Polish explorers met with the descendants of the Narwhal crew in the UK. Imagine Tamara Lowe, at 80 years old, finding a tangible piece of her father's legacy, saying her father had only been a series of fleeting images and sounds to her until then. The discovery of Narwhal offered a solemn yet vital closure to those left behind, a reminder of the deep sea's telling silence. Not too far from these waters, another submarine story was unfolding around the same time. Over in the United States, the Navy was busy at work in 1941, piecing together what would be known as the USS Grunion SS-216. This wasn't just any submarine. It was a state-of-the-art Gato-class vessel designed to sneak and strike under the vast Pacific waves. The man in charge, Lieutenant Commander Manat L. Jim Abeli, who was about as brave as they come. Fast forward to May 1942. After some rigorous training in New London, Connecticut, the Grunion was tasked with a maiden voyage to the Pacific Ocean. During this trek, the crew displayed some serious heroics, rescuing 16 survivors from the USAT Jack, a ship that had taken a beating from a German submarine. The Grunion then cruised into Pearl Harbor on June 20th, 1942, probably feeling pretty good about themselves. July rolled around, and the Grunion was sent on a patrol mission around the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. It's here that things got spicy. They reported sinking 2 Japanese patrol boats near Kiska Island, but after July 30th, all went silent. The submarine and all 70 of its crew were MIA, swallowed by the sea, leaving a lingering question mark over their fate. Decades passed with no word until 1998, when Lieutenant Colonel Richard Lane stumbled upon a wiring diagram from a Japanese cargo ship, the Kano Maru. Curiosity piqued, he posted it on a Japanese naval history site, where historian Yutaka Iwasaki dropped a bombshell. He confirmed the diagram's authenticity and had a juicy tidbit to share. According to an article by the Kano Maru's captain, a feisty encounter with a submarine near Kiska around the time the Grunion vanished might just explain the mysterious disappearance. Enter the Abel brothers, Bruce, Brad, and John. Having grown up with the saga of their father's lost sub, they were all in. They hired Williamson Associates, underwater sleuths, who in 2006 scanned the depths near Kiska Island. Bingo! They spotted something that looked suspiciously submarine-like at about 1,000 feet deep. A year later, they sent down a remotely operated vehicle, and the underwater camera didn't lie. The footage revealed a submarine wreck with English markings and a structure that screamed USS Grunion. About 50 feet of its bow were gone, hinting at a violent end. The US Navy put a stamp on it in October 2008. It was indeed the Grunion. So, what sent the Grunion to its watery grave? Turns out, a faulty torpedo might have boomeranged back on itself. And just when you think all pieces of the puzzle are found, the Lost 52 project in 2019 discovered the bow section, a quarter-mile from the main wreck, offering more clues into the submarine's tragic finale. But enough about underwater enigmas from across the pond. Let's take a dip into British waters with the HMS Regent N41. Cast your mind back to 1930, when the British Royal Navy was all abuzz with the launch of the HMS Regent N41, a spiffy Rainbow-class submarine. This sub wasn't just any old underwater vessel. It was primed for a slew of naval missions, zipping through the Mediterranean Sea during the grit of World War II, tangoing with enemy vessels and giving a leg up to Allied operations. Fast forward to April 11th, 1943. Under the steady hand of Lieutenant Walter Neville Ronald Knox, the Regent set off for a patrol in the southern Adriatic Sea, fully kitted out and ready for action. But here's where things took a turn for the cryptic. The submarine and its brave crew vanished into thin air, or rather deep water, leaving behind a decades-long mystery that would baffle historians and naval buffs alike. Jump to 1999, when diver Ennio Padalino stirred the pot by reportedly finding a submarine wreck off the Italian coast near Barletta. Initial excitement buzzed with speculation that it was the long-lost HMS Regent. However, this bubble burst when further poking around revealed the wreck to be the Italian submarine Giovanni Bauzan, scuttled during the war and masquerading as an oil depot ship named GRS 251. The plot thickened, and the search for the real HMS Regent trudged on until May 2022, when Dr. Fabio Giuseppe Bisciotti, alongside diving dynamos Michele Favaron and Dr. Stefania Belesso, cracked the case. They found a wreck off Monopoli, Italy, resting quietly at about 75 meters deep. Their keen eyes noticed features screaming British R-class design, like those 6 torpedo tubes at the bow, making hearts race with the possibility that this could indeed be the elusive Regent. Dr. Bisciotti played a bit of a tease, noting, "We found some particular points unique to British submarines. The entire body of the wreck has been shaped, and the total length is 87 meters, which is the length of an R-class submarine." Local law from April 18, 1943 supported this thrilling find, with tales from the Brindisi area of a massive offshore explosion, followed by the grim sight of oil and debris at sea. In a poignant footnote, the bodies of 4 sailors donned in British naval uniforms washed up along the coastline, sealing the deal on the submarine's tragic saga. Now, isn't that a story to ponder as we turn our gaze to another fascinating underwater tale? In September 2023, a Royal Navy Vanguard-class submarine made quite the entrance as it returned to HM Naval Base Clyde off Scotland's rugged west coast. After a 6-month-long stint under the waves, one of the longest deterrence patrols to date, the sub surfaced looking more like a creature from the deep than a feat of modern engineering. Its hull was completely decked out in marine bling, covered with algae and barnacles. Biofouling, the fancy term for this oceanic accessorizing, happens when ships and submarines spend too much time playing hide-and-seek underwater at a snail's pace. Vanguard-class subs, known for their stealth, keep it slow to avoid any unwanted attention, which means they also get to wear this season's latest in marine growth. Photos snapped as the submarine cruised into the Clyde revealed a hull that was less navy grey and more sea monster green, with a crusty overlay of barnacles that would make any pirate ship jealous. This unusual look isn't just about aesthetics, though. It tells the tale of extended time at sea, far beyond the usual 3-month tours. Just when you thought submarines couldn't get any more interesting, let's dive into another historical gem, the USS Perch. Launched back in 1936, the USS Perch SS-176, a robust Porpoise-class submarine, was a product of the Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut. Its wartime saga under Lieutenant Commander David A. Hurt involved prowling the Pacific Theater until a fateful day in early March 1942 near Surabaya, Java, turned the tide. Caught in the grips of depth charges from Japanese destroyers in the Java Sea, the Perch's crew faced a dire choice. With severe damage compromising their vessel, they opted to scuttle it on March 3, 1942, to keep it from enemy hands, a decision that led them into captivity where, tragically, 6 sailors never made it home. For over 60 years, the Perch was just a memory and a missing marker on naval maps. Then, enter the MV Empress and its crew on November 23, 2006, not initially hunting for the Perch, but another lost giant, the British heavy cruiser HMS Exeter. Thanks to some sharp sonar sweeps, they spotted a submarine silhouette resting upright at about 190 feet deep, unexpectedly shifting their mission gears. Diver Kevin Denley's excitement was palpable when he described how they accidentally stumbled upon the find. That aha moment came when the silt was wiped away to reveal the builder's plaque with USS Perch boldly emblazoned across the top. The news hit like a wave among naval history enthusiasts and the remaining few survivors, like 85-year-old Robert Lentz, who joked about the $35 he left behind in his locker. This discovery stirred more than just silt. It bridged a generational gap, bringing a sense of closure to those connected by service and sacrifice. Sadly, the wreck story didn't end there. Between 2006 and 2016, it was stripped by illegal salvage operations, a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities facing submerged cultural treasures. As if the sea keeps all secrets until it's ready to tell them, another submerged story echoes the Perch's legacy from the waters off Scotland. Take HMS Tarpon, for instance, a British submarine that vanished without a trace in April 1940. After more than 76 years, divers and historians finally pieced together her fate, shining a light on a chilling episode of underwater warfare. Launched in October 1939 from the shipyards of Scott's Shipbuilding and Engineering Company in Greenock, Scotland, Tarpon was a T-class submarine designed to wreak havoc on enemy ships in the North Sea. Her mission began ordinarily enough when she set sail from Portsmouth, England, with her sister ship HMS Severn, making their way towards the stormy waters of Rosyth, Scotland. Shortly thereafter, both subs were rerouted to the treacherous Norwegian waters. Then, as abruptly as a ghost ship in fog, all communication with Tarpon ceased after April 10th, 1940. Just like that, she was gone, along with 59 brave souls aboard. Fast forward to March 2016. Enter Danish diving dynamo Gert Norman Andersen and the keen-eyed British marine archaeologist Dr. Innes McCartney. These two were not just on a fishing trip near the Danish port of Tiburon, they were on a mission to crack some of World War II's coldest cases. With cutting-edge sonar equipment, they stumbled upon an underwater enigma resting eerily upright at a depth of 130 feet. The silhouette of the wreck, the distinctive conning tower, and those torpedo tubes all pointed unmistakably to the lost HMS Tarpon. In a series of dives that would make even seasoned divers hold their breath, the team gathered crucial evidence. The forward torpedo tubes were eerily empty, suggesting that Tarpon had gone down fighting. Historical records pieced together a fierce encounter with Schiffswürdig Schurbeck, a German Q ship that wasn't fooled by the submarine's stealth. After a missed torpedo attack by Tarpon, the enemy responded with a relentless depth charge offensive that sealed her tragic fate. The twisted metal and shattered dreams lying on the sea floor offered a somber conclusion to a valiant chapter in naval history. As we honor the memory of HMS Tarpon and her crew, another saga of valiance and valor under the sea beckons from across the pond. In the heart of World War II, 1944 to be exact, the U.S. Navy was beefing up its fleet with submarines like the USS Legato. This Palau-class sub, pieced together by the Manitowoc Shipbuilding Company in Chile, Wisconsin, was more than just a hunk of metal. Under Commander Frank D. Latta, the crew felt ready to make waves, and that's exactly what they did until they didn't. Fast forward to May 1945, during its second war patrol in the Gulf of Thailand, and suddenly Legato goes silent. Last known action, prepping to throw down with a Japanese convoy. Then, nothing. Radio silence. Vanished. Poof. Fast forward again, 60 years this time. It's May 2005, and there's British diver Jamie McLeod and his team just diving around in the Gulf of Thailand. At about 225 feet under, they stumble upon a submarine wreck sitting pretty on the seabed, mostly intact, but with some telltale signs of its fiery last moments. Open torpedo tube? Check. Big ol' hole in the port bow? Check. Looks like our missing sub didn't go quietly into that dark night. This wreck had some serious storytelling to do. Matching up with records that hinted at a showdown with the Japanese mine layer Hatsutaka, things were starting to make eerie sense. But the US Navy needed to be sure. So, in June 2006, they sent out their own dive team from the USS Salvor. These folks weren't messing around. Over 6 days, they snapped over 500 photos and rolled 10 hours of video. And there it was, plain as day. Those distinctive 5-inch deck firearms and the starboard side anchor. Classic Legato. Oh, and those engraved LA letters on the propeller. Chef's kiss on the identity confirmation. This revelation was more than just a notch in the naval history bedpost. For families like Nancy Kenny's, her dad, William Tucker Mabin, was the signalman. It was a chapter closed. What do you think about this astonishing find? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story intrigued you, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more incredible historical finds, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.